good with that.
All right, we are now broadcasting. So people are starting to come in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Student Engagement. Are they really learning? We are just about to get started in a few minutes. We're gonna let people into the room and then we'll get going.
Yes, welcome. And in fact, we are going to have you join a session today. So as you're walking into the room, I'll just put up a code on the screen. And if you want to join, you can open up another browser or join from your phone, whatever is easiest for you. But you can hop out to hellosmart.com and enter 367098. So I'll just keep that up on the screen. And you can kind of keep that up there as everyone's starting to sign in. Going to be an interactive session today, so we're excited to have you. So again, if you're just logging in, I know we're sitting here waiting for more folks to join, a lot of transitions, so we're going to give it a few more minutes, but if you want to hop in and join hellosmart.com and enter the class ID 367098, you can get ready for a fun, engaging, active session. I'm going to go ahead and move you in student-paced mode as well. So if you wanted to browse through while you're waiting for us, you could actually take a look at the file. Those keeners, as they say in Canada, those people eager to look through the whole presentation early, you're welcome to do that as well.
Hey, Amy.
Hey, Giancarlo.
Good to see you. How's it going, guys?
Good. Just waiting for a few more people to join here. We know it's a lot of transition today from session to session. Probably need to go refresh coffees and all that.
And I see you gave everybody the code to connect. Fantastic.
Yes, we do. We've been letting them know it's going to be an active session. So to be ready to interact and provide us some feedback and thoughts as we go along.
And we'll also mention too, if you need to, you can use the chat if that's a method that you prefer. That's another way. I'll be scanning and being your voice throughout as well.
Yeah. Nina, you just let us know when you are ready on your end.
I am just waiting for Joseph Sanfilippo to enter the room.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna give that one more second. I'm so sorry, everyone.
That's okay.
All right. I feel like Zoom, no matter how many months I've used it, it still throws me for a loop every now and then.
That is okay. Well, when you're managing as many sessions and logins as you are today for a number of presenters, I imagine it gets challenging.
There's Mr. Joseph.
All right.
Oh, perfect. And it gave us great time for everyone to log in. If you are just logging in, we're having everyone sign into hellosmart.com. 367098. Again, this is our student device version of the software. It's a great way to interact when you can't be in the same room. So we'll get a chance to really have you be active and participating today as we go along. So just if you get a chance, log in.
And I see your numbers are climbing there, Amy. People are signing in, which is great. And maybe if you've signed in already and you're just kind of hanging around as we wait for others to join and sign in, if you want to, in the chat, just let us know where you're coming in from, what city, what country you are chiming in from, and maybe just say a quick hello to the group and maybe even what your role is as we wait and get everybody signed in here.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think so. Nina, I see you. It looks like you're, I think, maybe still here. But should we go ahead and get started, or?
Yes, it would be good to get started. All right. Enjoy the session, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Nina. See ya.
Thanks, Nina.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. If you've had a chance to join, again, it was the hellosmart.com 367098. Giancarlo, do you want to put that in the chat for me as well, just if we have some late joiners?
I will do that.
Already in the chat. Mary Beth got it for us, or Jen, or someone did. So thank you all. So as we get started, my name is Amy Lynch. We'll do some introductions. I am the director of the education team for SMART for North America. Been with SMART for 10 years now, which is pretty crazy. Former classroom educator, had a master's degree, still have a master's degree in education technology, and super excited to have you guys here today. Giancarlo, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Giancarlo Brotto, based in Toronto. I'm SMART's global education advisor, but also co-founder of an organization called Catalyst, which actually founded an organization called GOLA, which is the largest ongoing collaborative of departments of education across the globe, of which we do have US and several state Department of Education leaders participating during these trying times.
Awesome.
Happy to join.
Thanks, Giancarlo. And Mary Beth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a tough act to follow, Giancarlo, but I'm Mary Beth Jones. I am an education sales consultant in the Northeast. I'm out of New Jersey, and I cover basically from New Jersey up through Maine, and I'm also a former second grade teacher.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Again, this session is student engagement. Are they really learning? And it is going to be a working session. We're going to talk about creative solutions to facilitate deeper student engagement. We know this spring was a rush and a challenge for everyone. I have my own kindergartner and first graders. So again, thinking about, this from a parent standpoint, a teacher standpoint, a leader standpoint, how could you find out if your students are engaged and if they're really learning? So we've had a chance to talk to a lot of our educators, and we have some ideas we want to share with you today, and of course hear from you all as well, so you can work with each other. Right now I have you in student paste mode. I let you sort of browse through this file as we were going. I'm going to go ahead and pop you back into teacher paste mode. If you notice on your end, it brought you back to the page we were on. If you were deep in and perhaps doing some games or working on things, you're now back with us. So I'm going to go ahead and move on through Zoom tips. We already chatted about this, so I'm going to skip it, but put stuff in the chat. We'll be monitoring that as we go. So let me go ahead and actually, I'm going to start this one. We wanted to actually start, I don't really want to, here we go. I had this one before, I took it myself. So I'm going to start this one for you guys again. As we get started, we just want to think through what instructional models are you guys planning to support next year. Now, I imagine, I'm going to log in from my phone as well so I can see the student end. I imagine as you think about this, and we'll see our live results here as we go, it's probably all over the board, and it's probably changing every day. I think every day when you listen to the news, at the end of the day, you hear of more districts who have selected to start the year with distance learning. So we are in a time of a lot of flexibility and uncertainty. So which is why we decided to say, which models are you planning to support next year? So and it looks like
you could see that, right? You could tell that I was expecting it multiple letters, right? And some people put all of the above, right? Maybe we should have a category of all of the above, right? That's the reality
yes.
that we're in.
Yes. Exactly, which I think B is probably the most like a category of above, like some type of hybrid, right? So, but we do see, a lot of people looking at doing that live remote. We had some, let's see, I'm looking around, some self-paced remote, yep. So again, you can select all that apply, super helpful for us to think through this. And like we said, it's uncertain and it's changing at the moment. So you guys have a tough job because you have to figure out how can you build tools and help support pedagogy for all of the above. Giancarlo, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think that's the reality. It's one thing that we have to be very attuned to. And, we talk a lot about this in developing in our students, the ability of being adaptable. This is our time as educators, right, and system leaders to demonstrate and prepare for that, right? If there's anything that we could be doing as educators over this time is to realize that we might have a plan of, in place of when school starts, either next week, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, but that might change. And so we have to be open to adapting and open to working with our colleagues, right, together to work and support each other through this, because that I think is going to be our reality, at least for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yep. Absolutely. So I'm going to move us along here, and just so you get a bigger picture of what we're planning to do today, we're going to ask you a few questions at the start just to help us understand where you're at and what you're doing for the next year. And then we're going to talk through how our solution that you're using today, Smart Learning Suite, does help you do things like provide feedback and interact with your students. So let's go ahead and move on. I wanted to chat a little bit on this one about what are your biggest challenges? So knowing that those are the models that you'll be supporting, what are the biggest challenges you're facing? Oh, and it says I'm not running it, so let me actually start it. There we go, start, there we go. So now what you can do on this one is actually go ahead and submit your answers and just send it in. I think we gave you up to 6 to put in. This is using something called Shout It Out. But looking for on this page, what are your biggest challenges? When you think about all those different models that you're supporting, what are some of the challenges? So student engagement,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that when, it's hard to see your students, right, physically, and you put assignments on Google Classroom, whatever platform you use, and not knowing how they're responding to it. So definitely see that. And I see, Amy, you're categorizing them, which is great. The top left is the student engagement one. We see a lot of that. Reaching the learners, understanding the needs, it's a big one. Collaborating with peers, right? In fact, there's studies being done on the education community has collaborated the most in the last 5 months than they have in the last 5 years. So definitely thinking about how we collaborate is a challenge. Engagement seems like it's winning here in terms of doing that. Comfort with technology, that's a very real one. And that's not just with teachers, as someone pointed out, it's with parents and students.
Yeah.
Hands on, yeah, definitely. So how do we deal with the science labs that we used to do in class, or the group projects that required kids to physically be co-located, and then they can't? So definitely new ways of thinking about how we might facilitate those types of learnings. Definitely.
Yeah, I see things. Yeah, engagement, assessment, relationships, collaboration. Different populations, differentiation, individual needs. I'm running out of space to sort, but
Yeah.
so thank you so much for being such active participants.
But I'm gonna highlight something that I noticed here, and I'll when I work with the government officials, it's something that came out there too. So whether you're a classroom teacher or a government official, the sentiment around assessment, right? And I think we had a whole session just on assessment, and I'm going to unpack that a bit. It's not just about getting marks and grades. It's about, how do I know how the kids are progressing, right? And I think the sentiment is, how do I know who are the kids? In a classroom, we can easily tell the kids that are struggling a bit more, and you walk over and you spend some time with them. How do you do that in a virtual or blended space? So definitely a sentiment that's popped up. The other one is around, I'll call out social emotional learning and behavioral issues, the one that you just grabbed, right? So it's understanding that these kids are coming in and the emotional and sometimes physical abuse is at an all-time high for some of these youth. We don't know their context of which they were in this last period. And so coming back, being attuned to that, planning for that, and planning when we might not know if we can be in the physical space with them, right? School is a safe refuge for them, and you teachers on the line are sometimes their connectivity into safety and console. And so definitely that's a well felt statement that I noticed has popped up several times.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just, digital equity or, technology equity with, students being able to sign in and get in online, like there's a lot there. So thank you. I wish we had amazing answers to all of these. I was talking to a director the other day, and she was like, I don't know about you, but I don't have all the answers. I've never opened up a school in a pandemic. So if you have all the answers, let me know. Like, I definitely don't have the answers. So what we're going to try to focus on today with that is, how does SMART help support the blended and hybrid learning? So the key things that we think are added value to a distance or remote classroom is that, one, we allow you to interact with students anywhere. So we're going to focus on that interaction, that engagement, like so many of you mentioned previously. We're going to talk about how you can provide meaningful feedback. So you've already had a chance to see how we can get your feedback a little bit, but we're going to dive in a little bit more to our solutions and how we can get feedback. And then I think this is super important as well, how we integrate with existing platforms. A lot of you, we've talked to a lot of educators who are like, listen, I'm juggling Google or Microsoft Teams or whatever LMS and these other tools. I need to figure out how this fits in so this enhances and doesn't stress me out, essentially. So we're going to really focus on those 3 things today. So with that, we have one more piece here for your feedback. We wanted to, we'll go ahead. This is using something called Workspaces. You're going to get a chance to work collaboratively and remotely. I'm going to build 9 workspaces. If you're not signed in right now, you won't be able to participate in this one. You can get into the next one. That is okay. And I need to, I can't get this to start. Let's see, because I have my Zoom menus here. Well, this is, can I move those? There we go, start workspace. Let me move that off to the side. There we go.
Like the 20 screens. I don't know if you
I
tried Tony
do,
Robbins.
I
He had like
do.
these ginormous monster screens in front of him.
I don't have enough. So I just put you all into an individual workspace. And I'm just going to hop into Team 1's workspace at this point. So what we want you to focus on, and you are now working collaboratively, what we want you to focus on is describing your plans to support student to teacher interaction. We saw from our previous question that that is a challenge a lot of you are facing. How do you support that engagement, that interaction? So in this case, what you can do is actually use your arrows off to the side here. You can add in text. So you can say, Google Classroom perhaps. So you can add that in and you'll be able to see a couple things. I can see who's contributing that. I'm the teacher, so I put that one on the workspace. You can add in pictures if you would like. So, you could type in interaction and find a picture that represents that. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys a second to think through this and describe your plans to support student to teacher interaction. It can be a tool, it can be a pedagogy, whatever your plans are to support that. And I'm just going to pop into a few different workspaces as we're going through this.
Great. And as you do that, Amy, I noticed there's more people on the call than we have people on these different groups. So you might be a person that's like, hey, how come I can't contribute my thoughts? If you're not in one of the groups, feel free to use the chat. I'll be scanning the chat, and I'll as Amy's going through the different groups and summarizing those, I will be scanning the chat. And if you want to put in your thoughts and how you're planning to engage students, I will create a little synthesis and be your voice on your behalf.
Awesome. Sounds great. Sounds great. And I'm just popping through, looking at some of these as we go. So your plans to support student-to-teacher interaction, you're looking at the tools we feel useful for teacher inputs, what they can use in a consistent environment. So here's someone saying they're looking at more live sessions with either something like Pear Deck or Hello Smart. They just made that bold. Love it. So I'm hearing that a lot, and Giancarlo, you can elaborate this as well, but I'm hearing a lot in the spring. It was a lot of, just emergency, we're going to review concepts. We're not going to do a lot of new, and then sort of just kind of learn as we go. And now starting the year with this, there's a whole bunch of new challenges. You have new content, you have new relationships. How do you do things more live as opposed to self-paced? Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, you're definitely right. So the sentiment mostly, and this is globally, right, was first and foremost student health and well-being, right? And that means we don't push and continue curriculum. We make sure we attend to the health and well-being of students. As we're starting schools again, this new school year, it's really around, how do we continue learning, right? And how do we progress learning? And when we ask those questions, and when you think about that concept of developing learners, then in that is, how we engage and interact with them. And hence, some of the challenges on the previous page around, how do I get visibility into students? And so something I saw actually on that page there that someone wrote was around, synchronicity, right? The importance of, if we didn't already have planned to do some form of synchronous learning where we can either see the students or engage with them in this way that we are now, right? Because we can't see all of you right now, but we can get a sense of your sentiment as you contribute content, right? We can also get a sense if you're not, right? And that's a flag as well. And not contributing and not participating, that's a flag. And as an educator, you would do the same. If you're in a classroom and a student didn't put their hand up the whole class and had their head on their desk, or they didn't show up to class at all, right? You didn't show up to the Zoom calls at all. That would be a flag. And that's what we want to do as educators, is identify the students that might require more of our assistance. And the only way we do that is to create opportunities where we can gain visibility. And so there we have live streaming sessions, right? Using, this tool right here, right? Or Google Classroom, right? Yeah. Having students submit assignments, and we can get insight into, their thinking, but also who's not doing it, right? And there's other tools, Flipgrid and breakout rooms are great, right? Have students engaging with each other. And I loved what I just saw there. And of course, this is, in Africa and and parts of South America, and even developed countries, even in the US, that phone calling and text messaging, right? Never before have I seen more WhatsApp groups created between teachers, parents, and students, right? And something even simple as ways in which we can connect with it. And it's, someone highlighted there, it's this concept of not just with students, but also parents, right? And how do we build those relationships with our students when we're potentially remote or seeing them in, not as frequently as we used to. All great plans to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. So now as we scroll through these, I am seeing a lot of themes of live interaction. So it sounds like a lot of people are looking at that. Oh, mental health check-ins, very important as well. And we start to look at different buckets. So you've got a video conferencing kind of tool. You have perhaps an LMS tool. You have some of that student-paced, accelerated reader or iReady, those types of things. And then you have a tool like Smart Learning Suite, which really does enhance that live lesson or asynchronous ability to provide that feedback. So I don't know if I've been through all of these. I think I have. So I'm going to go ahead, and we've talked about your plans for it. I want to give you a chance to see how Smart can actually help you interact with students everywhere or anywhere. So essentially, I'm going to talk through 4 different things. And if you're, I've moved us off of that workspace. So again, I can pace you along with me, so you're able to see that. And we're going to talk about just how you connect devices, which you're already experts at because you're connected. We're going to talk about pacing. We're going to talk about some of our interactive assignments, and we'll talk about anytime learning. So there's a whole bunch of things we can show you. We wanted to really focus specifically on the interaction piece. So first of all, I can share my lesson with students anywhere. You've already had a chance to see, teachers will get their own ID, they get their students logged in here. Students can either sign in with their credentials or they can sign in as guests, depends on how you want to set that up. We don't roster at the student level, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can just very easily connect devices. Once students are in, I can toggle super easy between teacher and student-paced mode. That was one of the things that was really important as we built this out, is that we know that you have to be flexible while you're teaching. And sometimes I want everyone to follow me. Sometimes I want everyone to be able to move at their own pace through the lesson. So that's been another really useful tool to interact with students anywhere. So again, you can say, all right, I want you to, go to page 3 and check out that workspace. I'm going to stay here. You can have students on different pages at the same time. I was talking with another educator. She had different math problems on a page, and students could go back and review in their own time how those math problems were solved, so that then they could do their own work. So putting everyone in student pace mode is a really nice feature. And then having the ability to actually, pace everyone and move them right back by putting them back into teacher paced mode. So super simple, but worth pointing out that you have the ability to do that pretty easily. I also can make interactive assignments. So you've already had a chance to see our shout it out. You put your thoughts out there. You've already had a chance to see some workspaces. But I can also do games, digital manipulatives, and of course, just activities. So I'm going to move on and show you just a few of those. In fact, I'm going to scroll through. Since we're in teacher paced, I'm going to move here. And I'm just going to open up a quick lesson. It's at the end of this lesson, but now you're following on with a lesson with me for civilizations, kind of cities and natural resources. So again, imagine my students come into class. I give them this code, they join, we're all in, and that's going to remember their code as well. So you don't have to worry about them logging in like that every time. Once they sign in once, it will remember that code for them on their device. I know even as a parent of a kindergarten and first grader, logging in and out of everyone's Google, to switch devices was a big challenge. So having it remember, it's really nice. And then I'm pacing you through the lesson. And again, think about just the value in being able to mark up documents and have your students see that on their screen. So even something as simple as that, just the pacing, the inking, and giving you that feedback is super helpful. I can actually go through and do games as well. So something that you can easily add for that engagement. So I could put, this is a monster quiz. I could put it on here for you guys. It's a fun little game. Now this one does have a little bit of a limit, so not everyone is in. 2 students of our fit, so it looks like there's about a 54 perhaps limit. Hopefully you're not having classes more than 54 students. That would be a lot to manage. So we're putting you in. And we'll go ahead and start our quiz here. So this is just another fun way to engage your students, get them going. I could see teachers using this as like a back to school fun activity. So you're answering these on your devices. They see your answers come through. I'm gonna get started on mine. So if you're on my team, I'm not gonna be the reason you're losing. So it's just, again, a fun way to interact, engage.
Icebreakers is like really rocking it. I don't know. They must have seen this activity before.
All right.
There we go. Come on, heat waivers. Seems like they're coming up in second.
So again, this is a great way. You're going to see in a little bit as a teacher, I'll get some feedback on my end, but you're getting feedback on your end. You're working as a team. It's fun. So it's a nice way to engage. And we're not going to talk through how to create this today, but it is very easy. It's a templated form. Go ahead and hit end here. Icebreakers for the win. Congratulations. We'll do
what they win, Amy.
Yeah, they win bragging rights. They were the winners on this webinar, Giancarlo. So you get on your device, you'll see your score, you see how you did. I can do some class review, so I can actually go through and see how we did as a class as well. And I can go back to that team scoreboard. So you get a little feedback. The feedback for this particular activity is more whole group feedback, so we can talk through that. There's other activities that are more individualized. So I'm gonna move us off of that now, but that was one fun example. Now this example, actually, I'm gonna hold back and we're gonna just come back to the start because I think we'll go through that one at the end. But were there any questions while we did Monster Quiz? Any questions that have come up in the chat, or we're gonna pause for a sec? Any questions with that?
I'll just call one out. We answered in the chat already, but it was just around, how does students access this, right? So what does that look like? What are the requirements from a student's end? There's certain, do they have to download an app? Like, tell us a bit about that, Amy.
So one more time, what's it look like on the student end?
Yeah, so from a teacher side, you're showing us what it looks like on the teacher side. It looks like it's from your web browser, right? So it looks like you're on a web browser and you sign in. And the student side, what do they need to be able to participate?
Great. So students actually don't really need anything. I'm just going to pop up a new browser here, and I'm incognito one, and I'm going to go to hellosmart.com. You're seeing it today. You only needed my actual code. So I'm going to join as a guest. Students could actually sign in with their Google or Microsoft credentials if you wanted them to sign in and do more work outside of class with this. If you're just having them join a live lesson and you're just wanting to get into it, they can join as a guest. That's the easiest way. Remember how I shared that my class code over here was 367098. So you could just, you're on a Zoom or a Google Meet, you could share that with them and they just type it in and type in their name and join as a guest, and now you're in. So that's all they need to do on the student end. You don't have to roster or anything on the student end. So it's super easy. If they're using their Google or Microsoft credentials, they'll be able to, you can post these to Google Classroom, or you can post these to Teams, and they'll be able to access it that way as well. So there's a whole bunch of levels. You might have teachers that are like, oh, I'm not ready for that. I just want my students to sign in as a guest and play. And that's fine. We have that ability. Or if you have teachers who are like, no, I want my students to sign in because I want to be more specific about who's doing what, you can do that as well.
Great. And I'll call out, because it was just a browser that you saw Amy do. So, a tablet, a Chromebook, a cell phone, anything that's connected to the internet, students will be able to just go to the web browser, type in the number, and they'll be able to participate.
Yep, absolutely. And you can save these lessons so that students can review them outside of class. So I can save them, I can get a link. And again, depending on the level of sign-in, they'll have, like that, if they want to do the workspaces or handouts, they'll need to be signed in. Otherwise, if they just want to access the content and see what you did, you can just post a link and everyone will have access to that, regardless of whether or not they're signed in. So they have that ability to do outside of class as well. So it continues the learning from your live lesson to outside.
And there's a great question around, so if someone's interested in, having students and knowing what students is answering what, does the teacher have to like create a class and put all their students in that class? How does that work?
Yeah, you don't have to at all. So if they have their Microsoft or Google credentials and they're using that, you can just use Microsoft Teams, or you can use Google Classroom and you can push your assignments that way. Or again, simply have them just sign in as a guest.
Great. And then in terms of how do I see what students are answering? Well, how do I get visibility into, let's say, that last Monster quiz, right? Or even, you know, the shout it out, right? How do I know what student answered what, right? And I might need to flag, or even in the group work, right? How do I know who contributed what? Is that possible?
So in the group work, if you click on it, you'll actually be able to see who added it. So we can see that Sadie added that one. We can see that Brianna added more interactive sites. So you can click on their names and see that in the group work. With our response, I'll show you that one a little bit later. I can actually see whose responses I can actually export an Excel document if I want to do that. So depending on the activity you choose, there's different levels of data that you get back.
Great. And I'll connect it to, I think, what people are talking about earlier about challenges of like not getting visibility, right? When we're doing work here, you know, I think what Amy just showed is, you know, here's a way in which not only can we create a platform where students have a voice, but we can also get a sense of what students are contributing and how they're contributing and what the level of that is. And we can comment on it. We can gauge a level of understanding in terms of the vocabulary or the pace at which they're contributing or not contributing, and then be able to give feedback and take action accordingly. So I think it's a nice connection.
Yep, absolutely. Which actually is a great segue into our next question, is the meaningful feedback piece. So that was more just about the engagement let's see if we get this here. That one was more about the engagement and how do we get kids engaged and involved, and those are really nice. But now we want to talk a little bit more about specifically what are your plans to provide meaningful feedback. So that's we've talked earlier, you could sign them in, you could paste them through, but that's still, you play a game, but that's really still me sort of pacing everyone through a lesson. Now let's get to the feedback piece. This is the how do you know if they're really learning? So what are your plans to provide meaningful feedback? And then after we're finished with this, we'll show you a couple more examples of how you can do that with our software. Exit tickets in Smart Learning Suite. Yes, we have a lot of nice templates that are exit tickets, entrance tickets, the KWLs, a lot of those reflection activities. My favorite's the 6-word summary. If you haven't seen that, it summarizes what you learned in 6 words. I love it. Let's scroll through some of these. And I know some of you are just getting your thoughts out there, so I'll just pace through. Not all of this is loaded yet, that's okay. Some Google Forms, another exit ticket, I love it. Short responses and journaling.
Yeah.
Google surveys and polling, absolutely. Exit tickets, classwork, Google Forms. Let's see, so we're moving these around at the same time. Private comments in Google Classrooms, rubrics in Google Classrooms, exit tickets in Google Forms. Love it. Exit tickets, oh, that's the first one. Yeah, so I'm gonna Padlet wall, got it. And we've got trying to write responses for students.
Submitted. And that's great. And one thing I'll challenge everyone, because something I noticed in a pattern, is oftentimes it's easy to do the feedback at the end of a learning interaction, right? So we do an activity and then we do an exit ticket, or then we do a form. And with the evidence about the impact of feedback is when it actually happens during learning, right? And so what I challenge all of you is to think about, how do we create more opportunities where while the students are engaging in the learning, how do we step in while they're learning? Not wait for it to end, but while they're learning, so that we might course direct and redirect. A great example from, I don't know if anybody's from Oregon, but they're shifting a lot of their dollars from the end of unit assessments or the end of year standard assessments to formative assessment and supporting teachers with it. There's a growing need for that type of practice. So I challenge you to think about how you might be doing that.
Absolutely. And here's a nice comment. So being able to see student work, I think that's super important. Like in real time, being able to catch their errors or mistakes as they're going, so you can right away, instead of having them practice that mistake, you can fix it and adjust. Some small group discussions, I love it. So we've gone through some of these. Anything else or anything on the chat, Giancarlo?
No, that's good. I think we're catching all of it.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, let's move through. Again, thank you for your feedback there. Let's move through and talk a little bit about ways in which you can provide meaningful feedback with SMART. So we have our handouts and workspaces. You've had a chance to see workspaces. That's a collaborative group work. One of the things that we haven't talked about with workspaces is that you could actually differentiate those. So I put you all into the same workspace, but I could jump in after I've sorted you out, and I could actually modify each of your workspaces so that perhaps I put a few more prompting or scaffolding on some, and maybe I put some extension questions on the other. So you can differentiate with the workspaces, and you can differentiate as you go based off of the student work that's within those. And then we'll talk about response so you can see what that looks like as well. So I'm going to jump you back to our lesson. And I'm actually going to put this one into an individual handout. So we've had a chance to see workspaces. I'm going to show you how easy this is to do on the fly. So let's say I have this page created and I decide I want to actually make this an individual handout. Click over here, and now on your screens, you should all in a second see that you have a handout. And Allie gets in first. Congratulations, Allie. And I have a teacher handout. So what you would be doing with this particular activity, it's a sorting activity, and you're moving them into the correct category. So cornmeal comes from which natural resource? Corn, that's a nice hint there. Table comes from, I guess it depends on what kind of table, right? Could be trees, could be steel. So you could go ahead and work on this activity. Now, when you are working on your activity, you will see an option, and I'm going to go into my incognito window. Once you're finished with your activity, you can actually go ahead and click Done up in this top right corner. And once you click Done, I, as a teacher, look at all these green marks I'm now seeing. So I, as the teacher, will see who's completed assignments. I will give a quick heads up. If I see you as green and done, I might call on your workspace. So just keep that in mind. So let me, I see lots of greens coming away now because they don't want to be.
They change your mind.
Wait, no, that's it. All right, so now I'm jumping into Mary Beth's workspace. So Mary Beth, I'm actually going to, ink on your space. Do you see this happening in real time, Mary Beth?
I do.
Yes, so that is the piece. I can see what students are doing immediately. I can provide my immediate feedback. Allie is done. She was in first, so I'm going to see. Oh, Allie is done. Allie, I know you're on mute and unable to add this in, but Allie, you can see exactly what I'm adding to your workspace. So these should be showing up in real time. So we're not waiting till the end of a lesson to provide that sort of feedback. Now, this was something that was pre-created, but I love the ability to even just do this on the fly. So I did that quickly. You might have seen I just hit this plus sign, got a new blank page, and I could actually do a lot of different things. I could do a math problem. I could say, let's stick with evens, 2x plus 4 equals, I don't know, let's go with 16. That seems like that might be a nice solid question. So maybe I would first talk through how to solve this, and I could say, we're going to -4, and everyone is watching me at this time, so I've got 12 and 2x. This is how I learned to solve these, draw these little things out. So divide by 2, and x equals 6. So I just showed you how to solve that problem. And now what I could actually do is take these, and I'm not going to move that. I'm going to get a new page, and I'm going to give you another problem that you guys are going to solve. So I'm modeling for you, and now I'm going to give you this problem, and I'm going to do the same one because we'll make it 12, a little bit different. Now I can take this on the fly, and if I want to see what my students are doing, I can actually turn this into a handout. And one of the things we've heard from people throughout this is we just want to be able to whiteboard back and forth with our students. So you guys are jumping in and grabbing this. And now I can jump into Workspaces and you guys can solve this. So that was on the fly. Maybe I saw, we're watching you, Dawn. Thank you for letting us.
Don't make a mistake, Dawn. Don't make a mistake.
Yeah, she's like, we know I'm not good at this. Dawn's doing a fabulous job. And I could come in here and I could be giving her some guidance as well. Just making notes, things like that. So Dawn, again, I know you can't see what I'm doing, or you can't come off mute here, but I'm actually interacting with you within your workspace in real time. So imagine, someone mentioned earlier holding one-to-one meetings with students. So imagine that you peek into the workspace, and then after class, you want to have a one-on-one with that student. You want to pull up this work, and you want, as if you were sitting down by them, giving them a tutoring lesson. Hey, let's jump back to that problem you did in class. I noticed that you wrote, I see you, thanks. I noticed that when you did your division, you did blah, blah, blah. Like, you can actually peek back into their work, and you can do it live, and you can revisit it after the class. So I think that is super powerful. It doesn't have to even be a full, like this page that had things pre-created. You could just simply whiteboard, and I'm not going to jump back to that, but you could just simply whiteboard if you want to. You could do, if you're teaching reading, my students, like I said, kindergarten and first grader, you could put sounds on a page and have them build out words, and you could see everything that they're doing. So many different ways that you could use this. So Giancarlo, any comments?
Yeah,
or
I was just and you were alluding to it. I wanted to call something out that I think was so important, right? If we think about, and I used to teach in the classroom way back when, and as much as we'd plan and we know our students and we know our curriculum and we plan for lessons and we put it together and we go to deliver it, real learning happens when we're attuned to what's happening with our learners in the moment, and that we then go and we adjust, right? Or, something that a student says takes us on a different tangent. A lot of times, we're restricted with platforms or our PowerPoint presentation or our deck that we spend so much time creating, and we feel like we just need to move on, right? And learning is really about, and someone mentioned earlier, relationships, right? And it's being attuned to our students and their needs and what's going on. And so when we have an opportunity to get visibility, like we see here, right, with Jennifer, into what she's doing, and we're able to kind of comment in real time, that might set something off, which we might not create, we never planned on it, but we'll create a new page. And then we want to find a way of, again, interacting with our students and getting feedback and seeing and the kind of the progress and the progression of the learning. So I think it's powerful to be able to divert sometimes. And I think what I love, this is so easy for you to do that, right? You press the plus sign, and then instantly we now can go into a completely new activity that we didn't even plan on doing last night when we prepared this, right? So I think that's worth calling out.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I know these sessions go fast. We have about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to move through. I'm not going to put you back into a workspace. You had a chance to see a workspace, so I'm not going to do that at this point. I did want to talk really quickly about response just for a second, because I think there were some questions earlier about feedback. So the workspaces and handouts are great for that immediate feedback. You can see the process, right? Like we talked about the process, not the product. It's a great way just to get insight into, are they learning? Are they doing this? You can correct the errors, see where they're making the mistakes. So I love that. Response is really a way that is more of that kind of see at the end if they've gotten it. So, or as you go, of course, you can build these in, but it's not peeking necessarily into the process. So I could show our live results here. I'm not going to give us, I could move through our lessons here. I'm not going to give us, let me hit that over so we can see a few of them. I'll go ahead and just end it. We don't need to work all the way through this. You see sort of how that works. But if I choose to end this activity, I do get on my screen, I can actually, let me close that. I can actually export these results. And so I can see how my students did with each of these assessments as well. So with response, you do get a little bit more of that compiled data that you could look at as well. Just taking a little bit of time for that Excel to open. Let's close and say, yes, I want to view these later. I'm not sure what they are, but so anyway, it's a nice way to get a little bit more data when you're using Learning Suite. Were there any questions with that?
No, that's great. Let's keep moving on.
Okay, cool. So again, looking at the other thing we talked about was integrating with your ecosystem. So we talked about engaging students. We talked about feedback, live, real time, response, those types of things. Now it needs to integrate with your ecosystem. We recognize that there's a number of different types of tools that you're going to need. Video conferencing tools, video creation tools, different things. So how do we integrate with your ecosystem? So first of all, for our Google users, we have the Smart Learning Suite Google app. It just comes with your Smart Learning Suite subscription, no additional cost. There's just a way to access it through Google. So essentially, if you go, I'm in Google, if you go to more and you go to Smart Learning Suite, you'll see that app and you'll be able to create. You also have the ability just to take things like a Google Slides, which I don't have ownership rights to for that one. So I'm gonna take this Google slide and you can just choose to open it with Smart Learning Suite. And once you do that, it takes all of your existing content and puts it into what you just saw me do. I'm not going to walk us through today. We don't have time for that, but it works directly in Google Drive. Once I've delivered my lesson online, just like we've done right now, I can post that in Google Classroom. I can share it with other teachers through Google Drive. I can put it in Teams folders, all of those things, so you can make it easy to share with other teachers and students within your existing Google ecosystem.
Amy, that's so key, right? Because, as a teacher, I spend so much time creating, in PowerPoint or in a Google slide, and it's like, oh my God, I got to report it into this new system. And so, you don't, right? It's super simple to do that. I want to call out in the chat, guys, Joseph, thank you so much. He put a link there. There's actually courses that Tech offers that you can take to actually take a look at how to actually do that, right? And I think they have a bunch of videos too. So if you want to see how to actually, use your existing Google Slides, your PowerPoint or Smart Notebook, and instantly do what Amy's doing today, super simple. There's tons of resources there for you.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna jump in and just to reiterate what Giancarlo said. We get asked a lot about, well, do I have to create an SLS online? Like, create where you're comfortable in creating. Don't learn something new. If you create in PowerPoint, if you create in Google Slides, if you create in Smart Notebook, even if you have a PDF from a content provider or you took a picture of a handout, that could all be used in SLS online.
Yep.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
True.
Absolutely, and that might be a great place to start with teachers who are sort of toe in the water with this. They just take a PDF that they've been using from their publisher, they put it in here, and they just click this page and they make it a handout. And so now that PDF that they've used in the classroom and they used to print becomes a digital handout. Like, even if you show someone just that one trick, they're on their way to doing a lot more interactive lessons. So that's through Google. Now we also have Microsoft Teams, which just launched today. So we had submitted it to Microsoft and we were waiting for them to approve it. It just went through today. So for our Microsoft Teams users, you can download, or you can get a new tab and get the Microsoft Teams app. And what you'll be able to do is access SLS inside Microsoft Teams, and you'll be able to post lessons as well to your students all within that Teams. So again, as a parent, I didn't want to have to jump to a lot of different places. It's hard for parents and students to do that. It's all in one place. If you're using Microsoft Teams as your LMS or your video conferencing or that, you can just put this app in there, and now they don't have to jump out to another link. It will all play embedded into Teams, and it just launched today. We also, and I don't think, Mary Beth, I know you're online, and Mary Beth's big role today was to show us the collaborative whiteboards on the display. And Mary Beth, I don't think we're going to have time for that. So I'm really sorry, but thank you for coming on. The whiteboards that I showed you here, so we've talked about as if teachers were at home. We know that some may have teachers back in the classroom and students at home. From your smart display, the same login that you would use here, you would use on your display. All these files show up in both places. So let's say you want to start inking from your whiteboard on your display. You can push that to students, and they can collaborate back and forth with those whiteboards. The collaboration opens up in about a week on that. So right now, open up a whiteboard, ink on it, they're gonna see it, you push it to your students, and then in a week, you can create those whiteboards as handouts and all of that straight from your display. So if you're in an environment where the teachers are at the classroom and some students are home, some students are in the classroom, or a variety of different options, they can also run all of those straight from their smart display. The last thing I want to talk about here was that we have video conferencing as well. So you can connect your out-of-class learners. I mean, we're using Zoom today and showing you this, so you've got a great feel of how Smart Learning Suite works with Zoom. But you can also use it with Teams, Google Meet. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can put it with a PC. So I'm running a PC today. You can have a PC connected to your panel if you wanted to do that, or Chromebook or Chromebox, and you can run those apps. We always recommend those two as your most solid solution for doing video conferencing, is if you have that full PC or that Chromebook or Chromebox when you think about interacting with your display and video conferencing. But of course, you can use this software with any computing device, Smart Learning Suite. So any questions with that, Giancarlo, as we talked about it? He's on mute, but that's okay.
You're all good.
Okay. Perfect. That was worth the wait. All right, so to wrap up, we have 2 minutes left. Thank you guys for joining this session. Again, what we really wanted to focus on was how do you interact with students wherever they're at? So whether it's in the classroom or at home. So we hope we've been able to show you a few different ways using Smart Learning Suite that you can interact with students and provide that feedback so that you have the ability to not only make sure they're engaging, but you can actually work with them on what they're learning. And then again, you've had a chance to see how it integrates with other platforms. So as we wrap up, couple things to note. So one of them is that as a thank you for attending, we are going to do a draw. And you'll get a chance to win a school site license for Smart Learning Suite, so for up to 100 teachers. So, we'll be drawing and tech will be communicating that out after today's session. So there's that. Also, just keep in mind that Smart Learning Suite is a part of your current subscription. So if you already have a subscription to Smart Learning Suite, you already have this tool. So keep that in mind. And then also just a few other next steps. I know Joseph put in the chat that tech has a lot of training options available. Definitely check those out. If you're looking at my page now, click on this link. It's going to open you up to a Fast Forward Summit. There are sessions actually going today, but the ones I really wanted to highlight are the ones next week for you guys. So you can sign up and you can log into those if you'd like. You can see all of those. The sessions, again, 29th and 30th would be a great thing for you guys to jump to. And then also, if you need a personalized consultation, or if you want a session or we review this with your teams to talk about how this tool might fit into your specific ecosystem, you can contact tech. You have our information at the start of this. And again, you can attend this event for more PD. So anything else? Giancarlo, Mary Beth, Joseph?
Just Tammy, high school teacher from Delaware, gives you a shout out and thanks you for all the great information. I think Kathleen too has a question about pricing in the chat, and I think Tech can help address that question as well.
Yeah, I'll put my email in there for anyone that has questions about pricing. I just need to know what school you're from. And for the individual that said, will we get a copy of this webinar? We have recorded this webinar. You will receive a sorry, I'm losing it. You will receive a email with the link as well as proof of attendance. So my email is now in the chat box. You can feel free to email me any questions about PD or pricing and things of that nature. This session's not exactly repeated next week, but I think that you guys are having some similar sessions on the Fast Forward EDU Summit. And if you could throw that link in the chat box, would be great for everyone.
I'll make sure to also include Joseph's email in the follow-up email to all of you.
Perfect. Yeah, so to Joseph's point, while we're not repeating this exact session, you'll see a lot of sessions available, that will be covering this tool as well. All right. Well, with that, I know we sort of have a hard stop, so I want to be, respectful to the next presenter. So thank you guys all for joining. And we appreciate your time today. Good luck with the rest of the day.
Yeah, and thank you, Amy, for taking us through that. That was great.
Thank you, Amy. That was excellent.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Have a good one, everyone.
Take
Stay
care.
tuned for the Kid OYO section coming up next.
Awesome.